just get going, and then you tell me which one you want.
Okay, Warren, I think we are ready to go. Yep.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Abington Heights School Board meeting for Wednesday, September 4th. Would everyone please rise and pledge the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can we have roll call, please? Oh, roll call's coming.
You can, absolutely.
Maybe.
I'm working on it, I apologize, there's a lot of screens open. All right, Mr. Abdallah.
Here.
Mr. Azar.
Here.
Mrs. Henderson.
Here.
Mrs. Hillebrand.
Here.
Mrs. Karam.
Here.
Mr. Moran.
Here.
Mr. Robeson.
Here.
Mrs. Tierney.
Here.
Mr. Acker.
Here.
Thank you.
Please have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Azar.
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson. Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand. Yes. Mrs. Karam.
Yes.
Mr. Moran.
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah.
Yes.
And Mr. Acker.
Yes. Dr. Schaefer, I'm going to ask a procedural question. Do you want to have public comment now, or do
Yes.
you want to have it later? So if that's the case, let's have, if anyone would like to speak to the board, please let us know. Stand up, raise your hand, give us the cards. Anyone? Okay. Dr. Schaefer, we're on to the superintendent's report.
All right. I'd like to first start by thanking our community, our families, and all of our children in the district for an absolutely wonderful first day. As with most first days, we'll have some hiccups that we will iron out during the course of this week and next week. But on the whole, it was an absolutely fabulous day. Dr. Vitale and I got to visit everybody at the schools, see all the smiling faces, all the bows, perhaps a few tears from students, more from parents. But it was absolutely fantastic, and I can't wait for school tomorrow. Tonight, we have a special presentation. We have our architects from KCBA here to unveil officially the conceptual design for the middle school. And I just want to make manage some expectations here before I bring Jim up from KCBA. The design process takes approximately 1 year. We started in April. This is just the first step through the schematic design. We'll continue throughout this year in this process. What you can expect from the school board is in the fall here, we'll be putting out an RFP for a construction manager. What you can expect in the spring are our bids for the project for a general contractor and some of the other prime contractors, with the intention of starting in September of 2025, which would mean that throughout this summer, we would be engaged in site prep the summer for 2025. And the anticipated delivery of the 85,000 square foot new addition and renovation would be in September of 2027. So, Jim.
Good evening, happy to be here. Jim Kiefer, Director of Operations at KCBA. In the past, you've talked to Mike Kelly. Mike would love to be here tonight, but he had COVID, so he's a little down under the weather. Hopefully he'll be back next time. As Dr. Schaefer said, we've been working all summer with the administrative team on the schematic design. That's the first step of the design process. So tonight is to give you a summary of where we're at and what the next steps are. Little history, there was a study done late last year early this year. Looking at all of your buildings throughout the district, we completed that study. We looked at all 4 of the elementary schools, the middle school, the high school, and there were a lot of recommendations that came out of that. What we're focused on first is the middle school project. That was really determined to have the highest need, although there are needs at other schools that we still are discussing. What was driving the decision to work on the middle school was the demographic information. The middle school ends up with a load on it of students that it's beyond its capacity. You're really exceeding how many students can fit in that building. I'm sure you all know that 4 grades are all in the half-circle classroom area. The goal is to provide a lot more space, spread out those grades, move 2 grades into another wing of the building so that everybody has the room they need for education. That's the 83% is, you're really right at the top of where you want to be. You never want a school to be at 100%. The efficiency factor of how you schedule and move kids around a building, you can't go to 100%. So when you get into the 80s, you're really full. If you go any further, now you're really having scheduling problems. So the main takeaways, we really need to improve the HVAC system in the building. All the schools, eventually we're talking about replacing the mechanical systems in the 4 elementary schools. That's going to happen after the middle school project. We also want to introduce modern educational spaces into these buildings. So a lot of what we've been talking about this summer is what is a middle school program, what are the spaces that are needed when we do an addition, how do we build a school, at least the part that's being constructed now, for where you want to be in the future. We did look at multiple options in the study. So first of all was build a new middle school. Your existing school is over 50 years old, not in the greatest of shape, but building a new school has a really high price tag. There's also options of just build the 7-8 wing in the gymnasium. That's actually what we chose to do. Or you can renovate the entire school. I think there is a longer-term plan, which we're going to talk about at the end of this presentation, about what that longer vision might be. But for right now, we're focused on a 7-8 academic wing and a new gymnasium. So we began the schematic design process in April of this year. Mike, me, and my team have been working with the district. Every 2 weeks we come up, we have a meeting, we talk about different design aspects of the building. We help develop the educational program. What are the spaces that we need? How large are they? What do they need to be adjacent to? And we looked at different options for how to lay this addition out. One of the big ones was, where's the gym? What's the orientation of the gym? How do we locate that on the site so that we have the least impact? And least impact is related to cost. We're always trying to look at the efficient way to lay out the building. We also engaged a civil engineer. Mark is here from HRG. I'll have him come up in a minute and talk about the site plan. They've been working all summer as well, developing the sketch plan, which is the first submission that goes to the township. That starts the land development process, which is really the longest term design item that we have to do to get through the county conservation district, get through the township, get through the sewer authority. All those things take time, and Mark and his team are working on that. And we also looked at the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. What is the right system to add on to the building that you already have? We're not replacing the entire building, so we have to find a system that best marries to what is going to stay there on the site and how do we add in the future. So here is the site plan. This is your existing site, bird's eye view. The school's right in the center. And then I think if you click forward, Maggie, this is where we propose the addition, the red box. We're building to the west of the existing building on the main drop-off parking lot that's there now. Talked about parking because we're taking over the parking lot that is in front of the building. We're going to have to build a new parking lot to replace that, but also expand parking on the east side of the site, expanding that parking lot to provide additional parking during construction and also after construction. And then 2 play fields. Want to use the property, the open grass field to the west of the school and develop that for 2 soccer fields. And here's the sketch plan. This is the sketch plan that HRG developed. Mark, you want to walk them through a little bit?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Mark Spatz from HRG. So similar to Jim just talked about the layout of the different components of the building, one thing you can see there in the center of the sketch, the yellow area, that's the new addition area where the gymnasium would be. In addition to that, there'll be a planned area for a future expansion just to the west of that, or the left side of that as well. In the parking areas, you can see a bunch of green circles. Those are vegetated trees, which are required by the ordinance. There has to be planter areas within the parking areas to be a little bit more aesthetic and, not just an island of pavement. In addition to that, we will have to the north of that parking area, you'll see some 2 light green circles kind of north of that area right there. Thank you very much. Those would be where we're looking at to put additional stormwater management facilities. We have that big pond up front, but that pond really is more of an aesthetic for the middle school. Built in the 70s, stays full of water. It's not really useful for stormwater management, so we do have to add some more conventional basins to meet modern stormwater regulations. So that's kind of what we're looking at doing those 2 features. In addition, the 2 soccer fields, we will plan to make space within the basins. So if one of those fields would get turfed in the future, that's taken accounted for now. I don't know that that's proposed at this juncture, but in the future, 5, 10, 20, whenever year, if that would be something the district would desire, that would be baked into the design. In addition to the additional building coverage that would come from that future expansion area that I talked about when I first kind of started introing the plan. So that's the long and the short of it. On the front side of the semicircle, where the roadway comes around, there's a bump out there. In addition, that's not there currently for some bus offloading or pickups for whatever use for the district for sports or just daily drop-off and pickups. And that parking area on the east side of the building, we're planning to do an additional connection to the road that goes up to Newton Elementary School. So instead of just a single in and single out parking lot, which does get congested at times, for sporting events and whatnot, there'd be kind of 2 ways to get in and out of that lot, which will make a big difference there if you've ever gotten there where the lot kind of gets a little jammed up right now. I guess the final piece to this, the access, we plan to more formalize the access road behind the existing middle school. So we can come around, you can see that kind of that gray line at the very bottom right there. That will more formalize that just for a little bit better access around the back of the building to, that's kind of the power plant part of the building where all the mechanicals and things of that nature to get a little easier access for that into the future.
Yeah, the access road around the back is being added because we're putting a new boiler room near the yellow box at the back of the building, and we got to be able to get to the transformer and generator, the boilers, things like that. So we want to have an access road just to get back there. Big idea with the site is to maintain the separation of the parent drop-off from the bus drop-off. So the parent drop-off would be on the left side, coming up and dropping off right at the front door of the building. The buses would stay on the main drive and drop off along there, and the students would come up more on the east side of the building to come in. It's real important security-wise to try to keep those separate, avoid accidents between parent vehicles and buses. And as Mark said, we really want to develop that access drive going up past the elementary school and likely going out that way. Have the circulation be more of a one-way in off of at the top of the screen and go over to the elementary school and then come out. Okay. This is a rendering of what the addition would look like. On the left is the existing building. Right in the center with the AH on it is where the main front door is. That's administration and STEM on top. In the back is the new gymnasium. There's a large lobby to enter that. And then connecting those two boxes is the new academic two-story classroom wing. Here's a preliminary plan of what that is going to look like. The area in white is the addition, and also the brown gymnasium box. It's all to the west of the existing school. We're adding 10 classrooms on 2 floors, so 20 classrooms. That supports the 2 grades that are going to move over to this area. We're also building 3 STEM rooms to really develop the curriculum, the STEM curriculum for middle school. There's a large gymnasium. I believe it's going to be the largest in the district, and the support facilities for that. So there's new locker rooms and bathrooms associated with that. The second floor is very similar to the first floor. There's the academic wing on the second floor, goes from north to south, and on the top end is 2 of the STEM classrooms, which we'll show you a little bit more in a little bit. This is coming a little further up on the parent loop, and the front door is right to the right of the AH. That's your main entrance. Control point, we want all visitors during the day to come to one point in the building. This would be the point. This is also where all the parent drop-off would come into the building. This is an enlargement of the new administration area. On the bottom of the screen, you see a large vestibule that goes into the lobby. The vestibule is where the students would come in and out at the beginning and end of the day. Once the day starts, those doors are locked, and all visitors need to come in through the secure vestibule, which is just above that. That's a locked area so that security can vet who's coming in and out of the building. It's where you would have your lobby guard or system to check, background check who people are, get them vetted by the receptionist before they come any deeper into the building. It may be that some parents coming and just dropped off, somebody forgot a book or something. They can just drop it off there. We really want to control and limit who comes into the building during the school day to really avoid those type of security issues that might come up by having visitors in the building. Now, if they need to come in further, there's a door that they would be buzzed into the reception area. They might have a meeting with the principal, go back to the principal's office. There's also a conference room up in that area. A lot of times the interaction with parents are going to happen in those 2 spaces. And then if the visitor needs to go further, there's a door from the reception area that goes into the lobby that gets you into the rest of the school. So once you're vetted and past that point, you can go into the rest of the school and see who you need to see. The rest is support space. There's hotel stations so that when there's administrators or teachers that need to just be here from time to time. They have a place to land. It also doubles as our place for students to be monitored by the vice principal who's in the upper corner there. It might be a disciplinary issue and they're waiting to talk to the vice principal. There's a bathroom and a mail room and things like that also in this area. This is the first floor main academic wing. The classrooms are going from left to right. There are 10 total rooms. Most of them are standard classrooms. There are 2 larger rooms. Those are the science labs. We are connecting the building with the 2 main corridors that come from the existing building. Basically, where you enter the building now becomes a new corridor into the lobby, the new lobby to enter the building. And at the back, there's a corridor that runs behind the stage along the specialty rooms, and that hallway would extend into the addition as well, and that lines up with the lobby for the gymnasium. Okay. The gymnasium, we're planning on an 800-seat middle school gymnasium. So it would have a main court and 2 practice courts, basketball courts. Also would have a main volleyball court and 2 practice volleyball courts. The bleachers are shown out in this model. Obviously, they would retract against the wall for PE classes during the day. This is more the setup when you're having an event in the evening. To the right are the 2 locker rooms that support the gymnasium. These are designed primarily as team rooms. So for team sports, a lot of those are going to happen out of this space. We already have another gymnasium in the school and an auxiliary gym and locker rooms associated with that. So this is in addition to the athletic facilities that are already in the building. Life skills room, one of the areas that we are renovating is this area here. This is located right where the current administration offices are. They are moving into the addition at the new front door, and so this space becomes life skills. We've talked to the administration about how to fit this out. Really want a large, flexible space that you can use in a variety of ways. Have a kitchen environment so that the kids can learn how to cook and do those type of tasks. Also an apartment setting, so there's sofa and bed and things of that nature where they have a sort of a real world setting where they can learn things they need to do for regular life. There's a few other small rooms around that. There's a storage room. There's need to put a lot of stuff away for these students. Directly in front of that is an SRO office, so we want to have your security officer central in the building, have a place to land. It's right next to the cafeteria, which is a great place to monitor what's going on during the day. In reality, that person is moving around the building constantly throughout the day, but they need a place to safely secure things and a place to put their items. And then there's a bathroom associated with that as well. The second floor is very similar to the first floor. There are the 10 classrooms going from left to right. The big difference is on the far left is the STEM labs. There are 2 STEM labs on this level. They are above the administration area. We can show you that a little in more detail in the video we're going to show shortly.
Can we also add that this is an assistant principal's office?
There's, we made a decision to diversify or spread out administration, so we have a vice principal's office on this floor. There at that, on the right side there, right next to there's an IPC, which is a teacher's planning center. So this floor has, those teachers have a space where they can get together and plan out their team activities, and directly beside that is the vice principal's office. Really like to keep somebody eyes, administrative eyes up on that floor. This is that STEM lab on the second floor that's above the administration. Developing it as 2 spaces with a divider so that it could be opened up into one large space, putting the permanent equipment, the storage around the perimeter, and keeping the center of the room open. As STEM develops in the district, you're going to have different activities that you can do within that space. The key is we want it flexible. We want to be able to modify and change as your curriculum changes for the students. And we've been thinking also about phase 2 for this project. So this is showing on the left side a potential phase 2 addition, which would move 5th and 6th grade out of the half circle over to this area as well. We want to plan that now so that when Mark and his team does their work, we're developing the site so that we're not building something in the way for later. So we've thought through where that would be. The big idea here is we build another academic wing and we tear down the half circle. And then we renovate what remains. So your large boxes of your auditorium, your cafeteria, your existing gymnasiums, those would get renovated in a phase 2 so that at the end of that phase, you basically have completed the entire building, partial renovation and partial new. That's my presentation. I also have a movie that we prepared.
Real quick,
Just one
Yeah.
second.
Can
Let
we
me-
just,
let's go back to- I'll show you which one.
these classes are being
Yes.
renovated with phase 1?
Yes,
Go back
there are
to-
those 4 classrooms.
Go back. Hold on for 1 second. Go back.
Yeah, that's one.
Yeah, right here.
Stop.
Side
Makes sense.
two.
Side 2.
So I did gloss over this. There's some rooms there that are colored purple. They're not gray. Might not show great in the video. That's where we're doing renovation. So one of those was a life skills room, which I showed you. But the 4 on the bottom are 3 art rooms, a learning support room, and a small group instruction room. So that area of the building we are renovating as part of this project. But most of the gray is very, very limited renovations in this phase. The majority of the project is the addition, and there is some area of the building that we're renovating.
So to be clear, and you can explain that if I misrepresent, okay? What we have here in the very light blue is high renovation, correct?
Correct.
So high renovation essentially is tearing it down to the studs. So when you hear renovation, to me, I call that a complete renovation. So when we take the high renovation area and then the new adds, what we end up with is 85,000 square feet, which
Correct.
is, take South Abington, park it in front of the middle school. Take Newton Ransom, bricks and all, park it in front of the middle school, and then take all the K through 4 space at Waverly and park it there. That's the scale of what we're talking about.
Yeah, this is a 70,000 square foot addition onto the school and also partial renovation as well. It's a large addition. As Chris said, it's the size of several elementary schools if you want to look at it scale-wise.
The video now?
Yep. We prepared this video to show you some of the spaces in more detail. This is the approach to the front door, the new front door of the addition. All the students that are being dropped off by their parents are coming up through this entrance. This is the lobby right inside of that. Administration's on the left. If you go straight, you go down into the existing building. You go to the right, you go down the academic corridor. This is showing one of the classrooms. They're all designed very similar. We want that flexibility so that no matter what the subject is, you can teach it in the space. The teachers can move around very easily from room to room. Approaching again from the outside to the gym lobby. This is coming up to the athletic area. And then from the school, this is a lobby of the gym, showing what the fit out might be. All these things are still to be determined. That's where your visitors for sporting events would come in. And we also have this video going through the gymnasium itself, showing the size and some of the features of the gym with the bleachers on the side. And this is that STEM lab on the second floor. This is a two-room space with a divider down the middle. A lot of discussion yet on furniture and exactly what we're going to put in there, but it's starting to give you some idea of what we're talking about with the STEM space. I'm here for questions. Fire away.
Can you go back to the field side?
Yeah.
I do want to mention one thing right here. Yeah. So the board has talked about over the past year. Hey, there's Orion.
There's my husband. There he is.
We've talked about a stage 2. In the event that some of the financial outlooks change, and there's a myriad of ways that it can, will we be prepared to add stage 2? And we've talked about it, not only with our civil engineer, but with our architects. We are preparing for that. So when that day comes, the site will be developed in such a way that stormwater will not be an issue. Surfaces, playing surfaces and whatnot won't be an issue. And I mentioned that because of the following. This is a great question I got before, and they said, well, why are we putting the fields over there? That's kind of built into the calculus. But when we think about stage 1 and stage 2, we're now moving the building to the west. Right now, we've got kids that go this way. We don't want to bring them across traffic. We want to keep them out in front of us. So with safety as a priority, we're moving it all in that direction. Okay, so I just want to make sure that we all had that shared understanding of that. And then finally, what Mark mentioned this, our civil engineer, one of the things that the team has been working on is when we build stage 2, will we make sure that we have that stormwater runoff coming down in such a way is that we won't have any issues down the line. So again, everything will be set up for this in the future. Yeah.
Okay, so, thank you. That was a great presentation. My question, actually, I have two. One's very easy to answer. It's just that the gym, just to reiterate, will have a separate access and the school can be locked.
Correct.
Okay.
We're designing it so that there's a security grill that can come down to separate it from the rest of the school. The bathrooms are right off of the lobby so that you could have an evening event in the gymnasium with the bathrooms and just have that stand alone without going any further into the school.
That's great. And then my follow-up, Maggie, if you want to put that slide that you just were on, the proposed addition, was actually just to kind of reiterate what Chris was talking about with the phase 2. And just so that the public knows, when we do the phase 1 addition, we'll have less of the capacity issue that we have now. Right? I mean, so that'll give more space for the existing students, the other 2 grades, to either stay in the current half circle, heavily renovate that, or do the addition to the left, and we'll kind of cross that bridge when we come to it. So I just wanted to reiterate what was happening, because I think a lot of friends of mine, peers, neighbors saw the rendering, and that is half of what our district needs. And I just wanted to make sure we understood that.
Yeah.
Are we gonna have another ingress and egress off of the main road, or is that going to be the only one?
No, we want to keep the one that you have. That's a PennDOT road. As soon as we change it, we get into a whole nother approval with PennDOT, which I think Mark would advise us to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, generally, you know, PennDOT tries to limit access to state roads in this regard. It's a process all in itself. So in this proposal, currently, there's just the existing access. And you can see kind of the circulation pattern, although, you know, of how it works now with the traffic guards, you know, and kind of facilitating those humble guys that are there, you know, in the rain, sleet, snow. Today's beautiful, but there's a lot of other times I'm like, boys, you are doing a good job.
So I'm only asking because there's a dirt road.
Yeah, that comes off the other side. Now, that is a different access than Newton Ransom Boulevard off of that. But there's nothing in this proposal to formalize that any further for pavement or anything of that nature.
I will say this, in the event that we get to stage 2, and these are hypotheticals, and in the event that the decision the board would make would be to demolish the half circle, then we have much more room to figure out how we'd like to move those traffic patterns. You can't see that now, but we do have plenty of space to do that.
Yeah, one of the ideas we talked about is in phase 2, build a like Chevron bus drop-off zone where the half circle is now. Pull that off of the drive. That would be a good improvement to your site circulation. If the drive just went through and connected to buildings, the buses were off of the drive and the parents are already off the drive. Yeah.
All right, so
The first question's easy, it might just be semantics, but when we're saying fields, soccer fields, are they going to be multi-purpose just to accommodate for field hockey and even something to work in, maybe some space for cross-country? I mean, I figured that was just like,
Yeah, I thought of the largest field that I could think of, and that was soccer, because they've got a range, and that range would accommodate every other sport, with the exception of cross-country running around it
Running around, right.
72 times.
okay. My second question is, well, I guess first I just want to, applaud the work that's been put into this. I know it's a tremendous amount of time. I know it was very well thought out. I know, our administration has spent an insane amount of time. We're coming up on 3 years, and I really am proud of the work that has been done. So I would like to thank Dr. Schaefer and his administrative team, Dr. Vitale. I just think it's a very exciting time. It's very exciting to be a part of this. I also, applaud them looking for different fundings and financing to make this happen. So I know it's not an easy feat, so I just wanted to mention that. Some of the questions that I have personally and some questions that I've gotten from other parents and community members is, well, yes, like our target date is to start, open this beautiful wing of the, phase 1 of the middle school in the fall of '27. And then hopefully soon, as soon as we can afford it, start phase 2. In the meantime, what are we doing? Because the studies that we had, there's a reason why we're starting with our biggest project is the middle school. So in the meantime, what are we doing in terms of improving the quality of the building that the kids are going to be sitting in for the next, 2, 4, 6, years? We want to invest the money wisely, but we want to make sure that while they're sitting in those classrooms, that they are, the safest and the best that we can afford them to be. So I know we have done things in terms of safety, but I know like air quality is something that has been mentioned. So I was just curious, what's the short-term plan until we kind of have this whole project finished?
So, do you mind if I get up? So, Mrs. Snyder, Mrs. Bukowski, and I have spent a lot of time talking about, we refer to it as the Death Star, so I'm not tall enough, but all 5th and 6th classrooms would be on the outside of the perimeter, so that every main classroom has a window and has light. So we believe that in and of itself will support kind of a more effective learning environment because we're not in dark all day long. So we would move all primary classrooms to the outside. That middle box that exists when you walk up into the team rooms goes away and will no longer be a learning environment. We'll kind of put cubbies on the perimeter of that, and that will be where students store their resources. So when you walk down that hallway, it's not tight anymore. It's not as tight anymore because students' book bags won't be cluttering it. They'll be in that main space. So we've kind of spent a lot of time looking at that space of, without doing renovation and moving walls and things of that nature, but how to use that space best for students. And we believe that outside perimeter, making sure they all have windows, and reallocating that middle space. Just storage is a huge concern at that middle school, of just where do students put their book bags and have kind of their own space. So we're going to work on that.
And then
Michelle, did I miss anything?
we mentioned somewhere along the
addition-
way that there's going to be new
Yeah,
furniture
in
throughout?
addition,
Okay.
yeah. Every classroom, every space will have new furniture, so we've budgeted for new furniture. In addition, and Mark and Jim can speak to this, but we'll be also taking 50% of that capacity out of that, which I would think that would improve some of our air quality and things like that.
Absolutely. That's the big thing, is we're taking half of the students out of that same space, and everybody can spread out. Fifth and sixth grade can use the better rooms in the Death Star, get the rooms with natural light. And then there's a lot of spaces to have breakout and pull out. And it gives a lot more flexibility to the academic day. You then would have rooms to do other things in. I think having that extra space is just going to help you bridge this gap between this project and a hopeful Phase 2 project.
And then because we have space, we can do things like build sensory rooms for our students, because in that semicircle, we'll have additional classrooms. So I don't want to give the impression that there's going to be empty classrooms. We're going to make good use of that space to support our students in ways that we can't currently.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have three questions. First of all, just kind of confirmation, the new section will be air-conditioned?
Absolutely.
Okay. Secondly, as you look at the traffic flow, and of course, that's you know well, but it's a problem at every one of the schools. But why can't we provide an egress going down the backside so that we allow perhaps buses to go out that way and provide perhaps a more efficient flow? What's the reasoning for not looking at that now?
We can look at improving the road at the elementary school to go out that way. That is not on the PennDOT road, that exit point.
It's not on, that's,
Sorry.
doesn't exit onto Newton Ransom Boulevard, but I think Country Club Road is a state road as well.
But
I believe it is a
I
state
think
road
it
as well.
empties on Valley View Drive, doesn't it?
No, it didn't. That's Country Club.
Country Club?
I believe it's instead of a three-digit, I believe instead of a three-digit state route, it's a four-digit. It's still a state route at the end of the day.
But
So
there's
it's still
already an
required.
exit there. You don't have to do anything to that exit, right?
There is, and where it gets into is, was that permitted? There's a lot of entrances and exits onto state routes now that you see along everywhere in the towns, and so on and so forth. But if they weren't permitted back in the 70s or whenever that got put in, you'd be starting from scratch. So that's how.
But are the buses using it now?
The buses are using that now to go up. And we've had, Mr. Branich has been really good with us in fixing that because it does wash out. In all honesty, I think we purchased that in '75. It's a narrow parcel of land that extends up. My experience now with the middle school field, I'm sure it was dirt and called temporary for a reason, and it has remained temporary for close to 50 years. So, I mean, that's why we're starting to take a look at, you know, how can we maximize what we have here without getting traffic studied to death for 3 years.
Okay, you know, following Mrs. Henderson's comments about what we're gonna do with the semicircle, I'm gonna not use the term you guys are talking about, or the star or whatever, but looking at that, right in the center of that is currently the library.
Correct.
So what do you envision for the library now, which A, serves the whole school, but B, will now be so close to fifth and sixth sections? You know, what's the thought there on how that will be used and how that's going to tie into
Sure.
the whole school?
So phase one, the project we're doing now, the library stays where it's at, functions the way it does now. If we do a phase two, there's really two options. When we build phase two, next to the gym, we build a library there, so it's in between both academic wings. Or where the half circle comes down, there's some program we would put in its place across the front of that. So we could put it basically back where it is. We would want to rebuild it because one of the major problems with the half circle is your accessibility. There's so many level changes and so many spaces that are not accessible to students. That's one of the main reasons to move on from that space. The rest of your footprint is all in the same elevation. It works great for accessibility and flexibility. It's just that half circle has a major negative. But it doesn't mean that couldn't be where the library stays. Like I said, we've been looking at it both ways. I like it better if it was maybe with the addition, the 7-8 addition, so you keep your library sort of as the hub between all the academic spaces, but it doesn't have to be there. I think that's something we want to investigate further as we would develop a phase two. Right now, phase one, library's staying where it's at, and when we get there, we'll,
But no changes to it right now.
no changes right now.
And I do want to add on, and I'll get to Mickey right after this. I just wanted to add on to something that Warren said. And in no way, shape, or form, when I say this, am I minimizing a library. This is somebody that spent a lot of time in a library, and I appreciate the Dewey Decimal System and everything that goes along with that. And every student, through the hard work of our technology committee, every student has a laptop. We're making sure that those laptops are upgraded appropriately. We're making sure that our technological infrastructures can support what we want. Many folks don't know this, but in Pennsylvania, we have excellent access to what we call the Pennsylvania Power Library. For a minimum fee, we have this. All students have access to all the databases that we all, as adults, researchers, if you went to school and had, you know, the fun of writing a dissertation or a thesis or various abstracts that I know Ms. Hilrain uses, we have access to all that. So it's important that we're also working with our students to understand how to navigate that world, so that when they go off to whatever their post-secondary plan is, that they can just simply log in and have access to every single book, periodical, peer-reviewed journal in the world, while also trying to maintain our libraries.
Obviously, you're not related to Gutenberg.
No.
A couple questions, if you could keep that slide out. Mark made reference to the pond where it's aesthetic. It's there's not a use for the pond. I'm an advocate for water space, but has there been any thought of draining that and using that area for fields or any other space? I mean, I thought that it was it was being used at the school.
Well, I think it's from a lay person, it provides an aesthetic. I believe there is a fishing club that uses that
That's
pond as
right,
well.
there is a fish, yeah.
We do have fishing
And they
permits we
stock
give
it.
out of my office. That's one of the
And they
things
stock
we do.
it.
We have trout in there.
You have goose hunting permits?
We
It
do
was
have-
a,
Some goose hunting
Yes.
permits that we could hand out?
Those are free.
We have a geese population there?
yeah, you gotta have the geese that keeps the
We've
grass
we've
growing.
had a lot of trouble with the other geese there.
Yeah, so, I mean, it wasn't a feature that was put in with the plan in the 70s. It was a part of the stormwater management for the 70s. It's just the regulations are vastly different than what they were in the 70s. So for us to, it really does not provide much of a beneficial use for what we need to do stormwater-wise. You know, back in the 70s, there was not really much stormwater regulations to speak of, so it was, having a pond there was kind of advanced, even for that time. But now we have to treat quality, temperature, volume, and rate for stormwater runoff, and with that being mostly filled with water due to groundwater, I mean, it stays full. As far as I can tell, it stays full all the time. I wish Hillside Park would stay as full of that pond as this one does. So it's fed well for the groundwater supply. It could be, you know, that would be a separate thing in itself to kind of look at, and the regulatory behind what that would take to remove that. It would kind of be opening the door to, okay, then what are you going to do to replace it? Because if it's one of those things, you know, the middle school has an existing pervious coverage that was there, done, permitted, built. That's existing conditions. As soon as you start to mess with some of the infrastructure around that, like the stormwater pond that was there, you'd have to kind of step back, and we'd probably need to add a pond similar to that size, probably right at that location. It just wouldn't have water in it. So it's a kind of a zero-sum game, I think, to some extent. It would make more work. You'd have a hole there, most likely, instead of a pond. You'd lose the aesthetic, and it would cost money, and then the fish and the geese and the ducks. And I would imagine some parents would be, you know, it is a pretty nice aesthetic piece.
And then also the fields, is it too premature to request lights? Or is that maybe lights that come after we turf, or if we are going to turf?
So, what I did, back me up on this. I said, is this built into it? Because I don't want anybody thinking that I'm saying, well, add-on fields. Chris Schaefer didn't say add-on fields. This was in the plan because we knew that we had to do something like that. And what I said, thinking in advance, is if there is a future board that decides at some point to, say, turf a field, because in northeastern Pennsylvania, availability is the #1 priority. I want to make sure that this board sets the next ones up to be able to do it, so there's no problem. So that's exactly what Mark is doing, to make sure the water runoff that he's talking about is in compliance. So if that ever does become feasible, we can do it without having to hire more engineers to prep the area. So it's just going to provide the board and perhaps future boards with more options. I did not ask about lighting, though.
And then the front entrances. Could you bring the slide up to the, where they are at the front?
This one?
No, more interior.
You tell me
The
when to
one,
stop.
yeah, that's fine, right there. So walking in the main entrance, is that going to be with metal detectors? Are there any type of, more of a security? Because then you walk through the next door, and it's that corridor. So what's that corridor right there?
So-
What is that?
So on the bottom is the main vestibule where the students would come in and leave every day. Those doors would be unlocked for 15 minutes at the beginning of the day and then locked. You have several hundred students coming in all at once. You need a lot of doors and a lot of circulation to get in. That comes directly into the lobby. Once the school day starts, those doors are locked. You cannot get in them from the outside. You can always get out all the doors to the outside, you can get out at any time. We need that for fire safety, but you won't be able to get in. The only door that would be unlocked is the door to the secure vestibule, which is just above that. That really controls access into the building. This is the strategy we've been designing on all of our school projects. We're doing projects where we're just going into existing schools and putting features like this in. It's the number one thing you can do to improve the security of your school is to control who's in the building. We want to have a secure perimeter and a controlled access point into the building, so that once you're vetted and you're allowed to be in there, you're in a safer environment. We don't want people wandering in the building.
So when the buses drop off the kids in the morning in the back, it's the same?
It would be the same, correct. So if the buses are parked along the main drive at that pull-out area, they're coming up for a set amount of time. The doors on that side of the building are open, and they're monitored by the staff. You know, they're greeting the students as they come in every day, and then they're locked. After that, you can't really come in at the other side of the building at all. The entire east side would be locked.
And then with that access road that you said that you're building for opportunity to get into the the HVAC system?
Correct.
Is that also still the delivery where trucks go back and do drop-off deliveries there? Will that be secure also?
It's not really for deliveries. There might be some deliveries like salt for the water softening system, things like that come back to that room. It's more for the heavy machinery that might have to come in to work on your boilers, or if your utility company needs to replace a transformer. Once we put that equipment at the back of the building, we have to have a way to get to it.
Jim, is this a requirement for fire?
It's not a requirement, but it sure helps. We're providing a fire access lane around the entire back of the building that doesn't exist now. When we are looking at this project, sprinkler system comes up. We are putting a sprinkler system in the new building. When we renovate in phase 2, we would put the sprinkler system in the rest of the building. So we're improving the fire safety of the building from what it is. It's safe now. We want to always make it better. And providing that access road around the back helps us with the fire truck access as well.
One more question. The auditorium, is there any change with that?
The change that we talked about in the scope is to remove the folding walls, just get them out of there. Right now, that's all we've talked about. I think when you talk about a phase 2, then you're really renovating that auditorium and bringing it up to a state-of-the-art space with new systems, new acoustics, things of that nature.
Mr. Azar.
Okay, thank you.
Could you go back to the bird's eye view? That's good. So, yeah, that's fine. So where the gym is, that's a really steep grade. So what are you doing behind the gym and from a retaining
Yeah.
wall standpoint?
We did look at that in great detail. Originally, the gym was shown rotated the other way. It was sticking deeper into the hill. We rotated it really in response to that. We wanted to minimize that cut as much as possible. It's really where the addition wants to be, the way the circulation of the existing building intersects. So initially, I was thinking we were going to have to build a retaining wall back behind the gymnasium to retain that earth. But Mark and his team have been looking at it, and they have done a grading plan where they grade out the back of the hill so that we don't need a wall. We're just going to cut it and slope it in the back. We're basically going to move the hill back a little further. My perspective is I don't want the back of the building to be a retaining wall because I suspect there's a high water table on the site. That's why the pond's always full. And so we don't want to have hydrostatic pressure on the back of the gym. We want the grade outside of the gym to be at or below the floor level, and then we grade behind that. So any water that's coming down that hill on the slope or in the rock isn't pressing against your addition.
And that slope is,
It's steep, yeah.
you've analyzed the slope, that when you grade it out, you can
Mark
make
has it
it.
graded out a 2-to-1 slope in the back.
Yeah, so we looked at the retaining wall concept, and to really do a proper retaining wall on a cut slope like that, because you're just going up, you have to first come off the building, you have to come down off the building so you drain away from the building, and then put your wall, and then on top of the wall, you really need to do a channel or something so that the water coming off the hillside doesn't just cascade down over the wall or saturate right behind the wall. May be familiar with when retaining walls fall down, kind of like there's a thing at the Sheets close there, you might have noticed.
That's why I'm asking.
And that's and that retaining wall issues always occur because of drainage, not enough drainage behind them. The soil gets saturated and they're not designed for that. So that's a whole thing. I have no idea what went on there, but that's typically the issue.
You're not working on that project, right?
No. So when we looked at the cut configuration with the wall, because that's what we first looked at, and to do a proper channel, which, we wouldn't produce anything that wouldn't have a channel behind that wall. By the time you do the cut slope, the wall, and you come up a bunch of feet and then do the channel behind it, and you could just grade a channel in at the base, come off the building 10, 20 feet, do a channel, and then start to go up from there. You don't have the expense of the wall, because they're not cheap. I mean, we're looking at probably $500,000 wall there, because it was fairly long. And earthwork is cheap in the grand scheme of what you're talking about here. It's some more time with a bulldozer back, or whatever they dig that out with. And you don't have this structure that can then fail.
Great, thank you.
So the downstairs of the Death Star, as we call it, the stupid particle board separating everything, what are we doing down there? Anything?
Nothing's proposed at this time for that area.
Okay. And then obviously there's an elevator in the addition.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. It's right next to the administrative suite, so near the front door. And we're also, I'm picturing the life skills kids are also going to be dropped off at the front door and come in there, removing life skills pretty close to the front door as well.
All right, thank you.
I will say one thing to answer your question and those like that, and that's, I think I had somebody once tell me that, don't forget about, the problem with predicting is how unpredictable it is. And that's exactly what we do here when we do budget forecasting, and we've done a very good job to get us in a place where we can borrow for this first project. I also know that 6 months from now, the finances will be different. In a year, finances will be different. So what we can do, Anthony, is hypothesize that if we get to a point where it is advantageous and there's been cost savings perhaps in the project, to say to our architects, what would it look like if we did some light renovations to the area for 5th and 6th grade? Are there pieces to that we could feel comfortable with some heavy reno in there? And I would imagine prior to the school opening in September 27, we'll have a much better view of our finances. I mean, just now, with the new governor in place and that team, and maybe if there was somebody else, it would have remained the same. However, there's been a remarkable change in funding in just 1 year. If that would continue, then we're going to be having a different conversation in just a short year from now. So they're good questions, and that book remains open. Greg had a question.
I just wanted to kind of reiterate a point I think it was made 2 or 3 times as well. I would be thrilled if we could figure out a way to leverage that dirt road as an in route for the buses and let them exit on the main entranceway now. If there was any way to connect into, I believe it would be the east parking lot or something there. Because you see there's a backup every morning, the buses are waiting in that line. If they could just come in from a different path, I think it'd go a long way to help at least the buses to be more efficient, if not everybody at some point.
Grace?
Very brief question, but on this picture, that green space, which is the old entrance area, and it's, yeah,
Oh,
right
center.
there.
Yeah.
So that's,
There's a courtyard.
okay.
You have a courtyard now outside of the library.
It is. It is.
There's a new courtyard that gets created between the academic wing and the existing building. And it's probably twice as the size of the courtyard that's outside the library. The primary reason for a courtyard is to get natural light into all the spaces. And that also provides a secure outdoor learning space for the school. So part of our conversation this fall is going to be what potentially is in that courtyard. I love the idea of developing your outside space for learning just as much as your inside space. If we build the right environment, the students and the teachers will go out and use that space. It's free space, really, that's going to be there no matter what. I think the way we fit it out is really critical. Get the kids outside. And this you can do without them actually leaving the perimeter of the building. They're still within the secure envelope that we're establishing.
One thing we've learned from the 70s to 2024, if you've ever been to the middle school, but when you walk through the entrance right now, we have a conference room. And on the fishbowl. And on the outside of that was a open space. Now, that open space had natural grass, which means we had weeds and things like that. And probably in the 70s, it was a great idea to plant really fast-growing, large oak trees, right? And they grew, and they grew, and they grew over the course of 50 years till it becomes problematic. And we just recently cut them down. But it's like if you've lived in a row home in Philadelphia and you've got a little backyard, if you're going to do something to it, they got to put the gravel and wheelbarrows through your house. So we cut down the trees and we brought the trees through the school out. So we will not be planting any large trees in this area, and we'll have some turf in there so that, as we talked about, it's an educational space and we don't create a problem for boards 30 years from now trying to figure out how to remove 3 large oak trees.
One of the main design features of a courtyard, from our perspective, is low or no maintenance. We want to put surfaces in there that you don't need to bring a mower through the school every week to mow the grass, or trees dropping a whole bunch of leaves that somebody has to go out there and put in a bag and drag through the school. So appropriate surfaces out there that are low maintenance is critical, but also developing it so that it's a space that you can teach in.
And I'm just curious, because at the high school, there's an area like that probably is underutilized.
Yep.
So, yeah, as we are in northeastern Pennsylvania through much of the school year, that's a huge space. Is there any thought to how to use it more effectively through those months when the kids can't go outside, or a portion of it?
Obviously, with the climate that we're talking about, there's months of the year where it's just not the right conditions. But at the beginning of the school year, at the end of the school year, there are opportunities. I think one of the keys is providing shelter. Somewhere that blocks the wind, blocks a light drizzle, can get you out of the sun. If you just have an open courtyard that the sun beats down and you're too hot, having some degree of shelter from the environment but still be outside is really beneficial to encouraging people to go out and use that space. Developing the STEM program, the STEM room there's 3 STEM rooms. The room we didn't talk about is on the edge of the courtyard, and it has doors to go out into the courtyard. The whole idea there is there can be an activity developed in the STEM program that you use the inside space and then you go outside to the courtyard and develop your project. So use that space in conjunction with not just the classroom, but the outside space.
Anthony, do you have another question?
All right.
Is there anybody out in the audience that may have a question after seeing some of this?
Thank you very, very much. That's great. Okay. Our next is action discussion items. Hang on.
The next panel is.
Personnel. All right. Make sure I have everything here. So, Mr. Acker, at this time I'd ask that the board consider a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam? Yes. Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 9-0.
Okay, so the next item, there's two items that go together. One is the Gregory Center, and another is a settlement agreement. I just want to clarify that that is not a settlement agreement, the ones that you are used to. This is just there's no attorneys involved or anything like this, okay? So at this time, Mr. Acker, I ask the board approve the agreement between the Abington Heights School District and the Gregory Center to provide consultative services related to contracted students.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call?
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 9-0. This very second, or do you want to do the motion?
No, this will happen. Prior to this motion, Dr. Vitale is going to tell you exactly what diagnostic math assessment this is.
So right now, we do a universal screener, which is Acadience, at the elementary level for our students. And the best way I can describe a universal screener is it's a quick 1 to 3 minute assessment on students, and it's almost like when the doctor takes your temperature. If your temperature is high, we know there's a concern, and then they do more assessments. This is that second level of looking at students and their numeracy skills, and it almost gives, so when you look at reading, there's a significant amount of assessments that are more diagnostic and more prescriptive to tell you exactly where you need to intervene. So if you almost imagine a ladder, so phonics is a ladder of skills, and it tells you what rung the student is struggling with and where you exactly intervene. This is that exact assessment, but for mathematics. PNOA is primary number operation assessment, and then there's also the ENOA, which is the elementary. So we would like to integrate this into our math intervention program, and this is training for our math specialists and our MTSS specialists to understand how to best administer this assessment and then make informed decisions of how to do interventions to support numeracy skills at the elementary level. Questions?
Can we have a motion to
Approve
that,
the
and then we'll- and then
PNOA
we'll
contract diagnostic math assessment that will be used at the elementary level.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion, any questions? Roll call, please, and thank you very much, Dr. Vitale.
Thank you. Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Motion passes 9-0.
Under being great stewards of federal funds, Mr. Ackert asks the board, consider a motion to approve the disposal of the following items, Newton Ransom, that are not in working order: the Advanced Aqua Clean Classic Carpet Shampoo Extract and the Super Suction NSS Canister Vacuum.
Is that known as the puke vacuum?
I do not know.
Can I have a second
So moved.
Second, so.
on the question?
Sorry, I should have held my
You should have
question
waited
until
for
then.
that.
Is that
Mr.
affectionately
Abdallah,
known as the
do
puke
you have-
vacuum?
Do you want to add anything to this? Roll call, please.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 9-0.
Before I read this next one, in our current collective bargaining agreement, we have section for life insurance. Occasionally, we will put that out in RFP and out, so competitive bid, to see if we can save money while providing the same, if not better, services. And that is exactly what happened here. So we got a very good quote, so there's some cost savings while maintaining the same level, if not better, care. So at this point, I'd ask the board to consider a motion to approve the One America application subscription agreement for administration options for group insurance policyholders.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion?
I just want to comment, thank you for looking into that and always trying to find ways to give the same quality at a lower price. So thanks for that.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0. Thank you.
Mr. Ackert asks the board consider a motion to approve the Abington Heights School District Federal Programs Equity Plan.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Mr. Robson, you-
Mr. Ecker, just a few comments on this. First of all, it was very well written. One of the things that I got out of it was a super high percentage of our teachers are determined to be high-quality teachers, and the ones that aren't, I got the sense that, and it's around 10%, that it's the length of time at level. So in that report, it is pretty nice to see. The percentage, we're talking like 93% high-quality teachers, and it's a very detailed plan of how we plan to satisfy the state, or federal and state requirements. And also, if we don't accept this, we don't get federal funds, it's my understanding.
Correct.
That's
But
accurate.
with that said, it's
No
not a
pressure.
boilerplate thing. A lot of time went into it, and it's very, very well written, so thank you.
And
So the bottom line is you're recommending we approve it.
I am recommending it, yeah.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Motion passes 9-0.
Okay, the next section is really informational. The first part of it is listing of the use of facilities. And then we have, is there any unfinished business? Is there any new business? I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you all.
Oh, Warren, can I just make an announcement? Our first cross-country meet, up all 4 levels. Junior high girls and boys, won everything. Varsity boys